Welcome back to another edition of the Michigan Lacrosse Review. My name is Greg Norman. We get a chance to stay home in the mitten this week, talk lacrosse with Hope College head coach Mike Schanhals. Mike's been at Hope since 2004. They're the defending MIAA championships. And we're going to talk to Mike a little bit about the league, where the league sits nationally, a little bit about recruiting here in Michigan, and sort of the state of affairs in lacrosse in general in the state. We get a chance to talk to him about a variety of subjects, including his earlier win as a East Grand Rapids high school coach, and what's lacrosse has meant in his life. It'll be an interesting conversation, and I think one of the things you'll find out is that Mike's just one of those really good guys in our sport, and we'll get that conversation going in a couple of seconds, so stay tuned. Welcome back to another edition of Michigan Lacrosse Review. We're moving home a little bit to the west side of the state. We've started season 3 with a pretty stellar group of coaches, and we're going to kind of hone in on the Michigan part of Michigan Lacrosse Review. And with us is the renowned Division III coach from Hope College, Mike Schanhals. Mike, first of all, thanks for coming aboard. And we're going to talk about some local stuff and specifically about the MIAA, but you're getting ready or pretty close to getting ready for the season. So how are things moving so far in Holland?
Absolutely. We've been lucky to get out on the field. And we're prepping for a game next Saturday against Elmhurst. So we go down there for our first contest of the new season, and we're very excited. So, how long
have you been at Hope? As the varsity coach, and then you had the club team for a while.
Right. So I think I started in 2004. So it's been a while, and it's been a journey for sure. I played at Hope too, and so I've been around there for a bit.
Yeah. Now you're a teacher at North Muskegon.
Correct.
You are one of the few, in fact, maybe the only high school teacher. Most Division III school coaches are employed. You're not. Does that set? Is that good, bad, or otherwise?
I think I'm grateful to Hope for working it out. I was a little nervous when they flipped the switch to go NCAA that. We had done all the prep and, so I'm grateful to have the opportunity to continue to do it. So, and for me personally, I think it's a good thing. It's a good balance for me. It's still a game for me. It's one of our players a few years ago, Gino Battaglia, said, "Coach, it's like recess," and I was like, you know what? It is. It's like recess for me. I cannot wait to get to practice, and so it's fun. And it's continued to be that way the whole time. So
sometimes less is more. And while you're out teaching in an English class, they're out recruiting, and you still have probably the best record of any Division III coach in the state. So being out there more doesn't necessarily translate into success.
Well, I mean, first of all, I work really hard. And I wake up in the morning and I flip the switch and get going with it and take it very, very seriously. So second of all, the academic calendar and the recruiting calendar, mesh up very well. So in terms of, being able to go out and see events I'm in a position where I can get to see a lot of kids play. And, I've been fortunate enough to coach some teams in the summer and sort of embed myself with them. And so I get a lot of really good opportunity just to help, continue to grow the game. And, it's been a really wild ride to see how much it's grown in Michigan since I started coaching. So I love to reflect on it, and I don't get much of a chance to reflect on it very much. So I'm glad you're asking me these questions. So thanks.
One of the other tangents that is lucky for you is that obviously too, the recruiting swath that you have to go out and cover for D3 isn't like a D1 program. Your geography is slightly smaller just because it's not at the level that a D1 program might be at. So there is some value to that. That doesn't mean you don't have players from other places, but you're not visiting, Long Island and San Diego and Denver on a regular basis looking for players.
Well, I have been to all those places looking for players, and we actually have a kid coming from San Diego next year, so we're really excited about it. So we do have a little bit of a reach, but it's really a school-based thing. So we got a kid from Texas He's an engineering major, came up to do that. So if it's a good fit academically for them, then they understand that they're there to go to school, and that's the priority. And then we have fun and play ball, when their day is done too. So
let me go backwards a little bit. My first crossing of paths with you was when you were at Grand Haven, when we came over and played. And my question is, you grew up where, you played where, you went to college, obviously at Hope and played. So give me a short bio on where that stick was in your hand for the first time.
Wow. So just grew up as an athlete, right? So whatever game was going on, I was playing, right? Got a little bit more serious about hockey and tennis when I was in high school, although I had played football and baseball and basketball and, basically everything growing up.
Where?
So I grew up, depending on kind of my family circumstances, I grew up bouncing around a little bit, but graduated from Mona Shores High School in Muskegon. I grew up pretty much in North Muskegon, which is where I live now. Spent a little bit of time in Grand Rapids as well, but really just, had a great time, playing sports, like that old nostalgic, like Sandlot type existence as kids with no supervision and just the ability to go out and play and have a great time. So I first picked up a stick. I'd been a big hockey player and really missed the team sport aspect of it. I was in college playing tennis at Hope, and I had an opportunity. They needed a goalie. So I was like, oh yeah, heck, I'll try that for sure. And it was, it just was instantly my favorite thing, sport to play. And it was good to have that background in all the other things. And it's been fun for me as a coach as well, because I've coached all sorts of different things. I was a football coach for a long time, coached a little bit of hockey, coached a lot of bit of basketball, probably have coached more basketball than lacrosse over the years. And, it's been an absolute riot to still be, in a kid's game every day. So
I'm assuming you're an education major.
No, actually, I was an English major and a philosophy major. And I had been working as a writer for the Grand Rapids Press and doing some stringing jobs. And I was coaching East Grand Rapids High School when I first basically got out of school. I think I was 21 years old. That's just trial by fire there with those American Pie guys that I had to work with. They were so much fun. And I just loved it. And my wife was teaching. So I actually went back and got my teaching credentials and have been really enjoying this ever since.
Teaching versus journalism. Was it a matter of money?
No, it was just a better fit for me. As a philosophy major, I had some ethical issues with my editors at the time. They wanted me to do some things I wasn't comfortable with, and so being young and naive, I just quit and changed course like immediately. So it was good to have that experience. And it's been a very helpful thing to me as an English teacher, to know what really goes on and how to get stuff done quickly. So I can coach the kids up on that. Like, okay, you procrastinated. Now let's get this done for real. Let's go.
I asked the question because about the same age that you were making those decisions. I was a grad assistant at a university for football, coaching quarterbacks, and I get a job offer to be a full-time journalist, and it paid $100 a week more. And it was, so I spent a bunch of years at the New York Times because it just paid more money in the beginning, and it was just a matter of being able to pay the rent. So,
yeah, that definitely was, on my mind at that time. There's no doubt about that. But
this is unrelated. This is unrelated to lacrosse, but how often does Thomas Aquinas come up as philosophically when you're coaching? You pull back from your philosophy classes for lacrosse gems, as it were?
Yeah, I have to limit it to tiny takeaways. And when I was younger, I would talk more. Now I talk less and coach more.
Okay.
So, yeah, but definitely there have been some excellent takeaways. So especially the last couple of years, the Stoics have been pretty important to the way that we reframe our days, for sure.
Well, as a West Sider, you had success early. You won a state championship at East Grand Rapids. And the sport in that part of the world in Michigan was very successful early, but didn't grow like it may have grown in other parts of this, the state, certainly Detroit. It's now sort of caught up, if you will, in terms of numbers. There's a lot more teams than there was even in those days. So the question is, was the advent of early success in Grand Rapids as it related to statewide, because you just had good athletes and good coaching? Because EGR has been, Rockford, there always been decent, solid teams. And I think part of that is because it was concentrated and maybe at schools that had a little more funding, if you will, more, which sometimes translates to opportunities in the early days. Is that a fair assessment?
I really think, I've been lucky because I've done so many hey, let's get started. Let's get this, U.S. Lacrosse New Start program. Let's get this going. And, so we actually helped Grand Rapids area form a middle school program. When I was at East Grand Rapids, it was Dan Wood, who was the Forest Hill Central coach, Mark Williams, and I, and, we just were like, hey, we need more kids playing. So we got a bunch of sticks and we got all sorts of kids from all over Grand Rapids playing. And so the Rockford team became really good, very quickly. Obviously, that's a big school with a lot of resources and some tremendous athletes walking around there too. So, and I would say, at East Grand Rapids, we just had a great group of kids, very competitive, very high expectations that they brought to the table. And it's not like that everywhere, so I feel very fortunate that I was able to start my career there. And they really showed me, what it looks like, to bring that winning attitude to work every day, and to, their competitiveness and their ability to reframe a challenge and to be resilient was very, very impressive, for me. And I really grew up and learned right along with them. So one of the early players on that team's actually only a couple of years younger than me is Greg Tanis. And we've had a great, he became the legendary East Grand Rapids coach after me. And we've had a great relationship the whole entire time. So I feel like I grew up with those guys as well. So
the rivalries that developed, it's been interesting in the early days. And I'll go back when you were at East Grand Rapids. Was it a big deal to beat an East Side team?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, we really, we were over on your side of the state practically every weekend, unless we went down to Indiana to play or Illinois. And I actually drove the bus the first year. So I had been working in a factory, had my CDL, working my way through college, and they saw that and were like, oh, you can drive the bus too. Great. So that was the only year I did that, though. After I was like, all right, we need a better arrangement than this. But the road trips to the East Side and then an overnight, basically you get 2 games, a Saturday and a Sunday. And we played all over the place over there. So that was a really good, opportunity for us to learn and grow. And, there are a lot of really good, teams in our state. And there are a lot of, more established programs at that time, especially. So, we were just all sort of figuring it out at that point in time. And it helped that they, Ron Hebert and the people, Mike Jolly, the people making the decisions at that time really understood what it was going to take to grow the game. And they were very helpful and very encouraging to us.
I asked the question because in 2009, I was at St. Mary's, and St. Mary's and EGR had this run of football and lacrosse over a period of 5 or 6 years where St. Mary's just could not turn the corner. And we came over to play during the regular season and beat them, which was the first time a St. Mary's team had beat EGR in any sport. And I think 4 or 5 years. And I don't remember, I remember the visceral arguments coming to the bus. The folks from EGR were not happy. Now that spring, they eventually beat us in overtime for the state championship. But the rivalry.
I think I officiated that game. I was there. I was on the field officiating that game. Yeah, that was a heck of a game, and a wonderful championship game too. That was a great season.
But it was from that Boer relationships that, for me, it was Adam Vincent. It was, some other folks over there that made it. And I really didn't realize the rivalry until I had played that game. I mean, you knew there's rivalries, but then all of a sudden there's rivalries, and then there's the, another level up. One of the things I want to talk to you about, and kind of as it relates to the MIAA, we have 170 schools playing lacrosse in Michigan now. We have 33 co-ops, but we have less kids playing lacrosse today than we did 5 years ago, yet we have more teams. And the federation numbers indicate that we are, in fact, shrinking. The sport's not growing like it was 10 years ago. Those are just, numerical facts. I hear all the time about how young we are as a sport, and I guess this is a bit of a loaded question, but we talk about how young we are as a sport, yet the numbers are shrinking, even though the numbers are growing in terms of team participation. And 52 years old, as the sport is, which is Lance Cruz's first year, doesn't make us necessarily a young sport. So my question, and again, a bit loaded, but my question is, are we looking at this from the right side of things? And I say that based on all these interviews that I've had over the last few months and talking with high school coaches and things. Do you think we have a good view of what we are doing and where we are as a sport as it compares to the region? I won't go national, but at least to the region, because sometimes I think we have blinders on, or at least rose-colored glasses. Thoughts?
Yeah, I can relate to the rose-colored glasses because I remember what it was like. So, I have a perspective, being in this 30 years, I have a perspective that's a little bit different. Both of my sons were lucky to play on a co-op team in high school. And I would say it was just one of the defining things that they were able to do. They loved the game and they got an opportunity to play. And I'm so grateful for that chance for those guys, because this is a small school where they go to school. So they were able to kind of have it all. So I am very optimistic about the way things are. I would also say that if we're averaging the last 5 years, the last 3 years have been completely smoked from a high school standpoint by our current situation. So participation in almost everything is down radically just because of family circumstances and so forth. So I would, I'd like to look at it again. I think we're going to get a really strong bump, over the next few years. And so, the amount of little kids playing video games instead of sports, that alarms me. These kids are too tied to their phones, in my humble opinion. And that does bother me a little bit. They can watch another kid play a video game and they look at that like it's sports, so I do think that probably will have an effect, but now more than ever, kids want something fun to do. And so I teach a speed lacrosse class at North Muskegon. We throw a tennis ball out in the park and throw goals down, and it's loaded with people. It's a fun sport. It's not that hard to figure out how to play. I can get out of the way and then jump in and play with them. It's great. So we have, I think, tremendous potential for growth in Michigan. And if you think about the football schools, like you said, East Grand Rapids, Orchard Lake, St. Mary's, if you think about all the football schools that don't even have a team at all, or have a newer team, or, a growing team like that, my goodness. So my high school, Mona Shores High School, which is a hockey school, you know what I mean, when I was growing up, is now a football school. And they have a very exciting new program. And these guys are getting good fast. So I think that, if you told people 10 years ago, Muskegon, Mona Shores is going to be good at lacrosse, people would have said, what's lacrosse? And now it's like, man, have you seen this lacrosse thing? It's fantastic. So we're over here on the west side, and there are plenty of high schools that, you know, should have it and will have it, I think, you know, as we grow. Can you imagine what Muskegon High School would do if they had a lacrosse program? I mean, it is, you know, the amount of athletes just walking around in our county over here, which has been a football heavy, you know, county, is very, very untapped potential. So I think that's the next phase of growth. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to happen, but I'm going to do everything I can to get out and help people learn to play for as long as I'm able to do this.
Like I asked the question, I understand the pandemic's had an effect on what we do. But when I talk to a guy like Bob Dowd, who's a veteran of this sport from the beginning,
for sure,
he has to have a combine at Troy Athens with Avondale this year to even have enough kids to have a small JV team. And he started having that discussion in 2019 before the pandemic, when there were, you know, 2015, he's got 65, 70 kids in the program. By 2019, he's down to, you know, 40 kids. Well, it's really tough with, if you start a JV team with 18 kids, there's a good chance you're not going to be injuries, kids walking away, most JV teams. And this year, numbers indicate that probably half the JV teams that were around in 19 will not be available in 22. So I think those are telltale signs. But then here's the other side of that discussion. I talk to coaches all the time, as you do, and I hear from some coaches that the MIAA that you're involved with Hope and Olivet and all the rest of it, it's certainly one of the best Division III leagues in the country. And I don't mean that it isn't, but you and I had talked about this a little bit off camera. I'm just trying to get a better landscape for parents, for them to understand, to know what's true. Now, Hope is an unbelievable educational institution. If you're coming to Hope, you're not to say you're not coming to Hope to play lacrosse, but you're coming to Hope to be professional at some academic endeavor.
Absolutely.
Not too many guys who walked out of Hope that are playing in the PLL. Is that a fair statement?
Not yet.
Yeah. No, and I get that.
We're working on it. Yeah.
But talk a little bit about it. What I'm trying to say is I think sometimes to sell the retail, whether it be travel or high school or everything else, I think there's a number of parents and a number of folks who have the wrong idea about what's true. And so if I've had people tell me, both as a club coach and Division III coaches, they're getting full rides. Division III NCAA doesn't even offer scholarships.
No.
So
no, like your best chance, you know, at getting money is to be a great student. And then if you have demonstrated a financial need, you know, they'll put a package together for you. So, but there's no athletic money, right? There's not supposed to be any athletic money anyway. But it is interesting. And I've been a parent. I have two sons. They were both players, and my wife and I have noted that, you know, in all of our travels, and we drove the kids all over to play, and we had a wonderful experience doing that. But we definitely saw a lot of people that really didn't have a firm grasp on, you know,
exactly.
Scholarship mania is definitely a real thing. And I think I would say that if you think about the JV team, if you're a super duper travel team player, are you going to be happy playing on JV? You know what I mean? And so I think that's probably more a reason for the decline in, you know, development programs, feeder programs. There also aren't any like rec leagues or places where you can just go play for fun. It has to be a big dramatic thing. Like I saw a guy, he was walking this kid out to the field. We were finishing up practice last year, and he said, "Yeah, we're going to go do some training." I'm like, "What?" Like, your kid's like 10 years old. What are you doing? You're going to do some training, or are you going to go play? Like, relax, dude. So it's definitely overhyped right now, and I bet that's a factor in the declining JV numbers. You know, every freshman wants to be on varsity, otherwise they're going to lose their scholarship, right?
Well, and let me be clear. When I came out of high school going to college, the MIAA was at best an extension of a JV freshman team at maybe Central Michigan. The MIAA now has guys drafted by the NFL. The MIAA activities and the quality of the athletics from what it was 30 years ago is night and day. You could be a 160-pound guard and play offensive line at Olivet in 1971. If you're not 285 now, you don't play, and you better be talented. My point is that the MIAA has had more growth athletically than any by any standard, by any conference in the region. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's a great alternative to go to school and play. Last year, we talked to Jim Berkman, who's one of the best Division II coaches in the country. He would tell you the reason that Salisbury.
He's three. He's in our division. So.
Oh, he's in 3. All right. Well,
he's 3. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but he would tell you that the reason that they're so good so often is because of a location, and he hasn't had in the last 10 years a team that didn't have at least 2 Division I quality players who came back from or stayed because of that opportunity. And if you talk to the coaches who played against them, he had 2 players last year that got drafted by the PLL. So that's an advantage over a program like yours. I don't think that's an unfair statement, but now you're the defending MIAA champions. Where does the MIAA, and they play great lacrosse, but where does it fit when you step out of the region? Where does it step out when you step out of the country?
Yeah, I think in Division III lacrosse, you have maybe 5 or 6 teams in a top level that are competitive with any lacrosse team that you could put on the field that's a college team, barring maybe the top 10 in Division I. So Salisbury's at another level in terms of that, and then you have maybe 30 other teams like that could beat each other on any given day, but still might get destroyed by some of those top teams. Right. So RIT, Salisbury, Tufts. I mean, these are really, really good teams. And, the rest of us are trying to aspire to that level from a program standpoint. And we have to build those traditions, but you can't learn unless you have that experience. So being able to go to the NCAA tournament and maybe get your butt kicked, by these teams, you don't really get it until you see it, until you live it. Right. So we're in that part of the process where, we're trying to figure out how to win our league. And then it's like, oh, great. Now what? So I talked to another coach that was at our region, and he said, hey man, we're just happy to be here. And I thought really deeply about that. And yeah, we're happy to be here, but we came here to win. What's it going to take? Right? What's it going to take? And so to be frank and honest with you, we have a lot of work to do. And most of our kids on our team are Midwest kids. So we get a kid who comes from New Jersey once in a while, or Florida or California or Colorado or Texas. But for the most part, these are pretty homegrown guys that we're working with. And so I do think that there are a lot of really good players in our state, and that will be borne out. And I think that because we do take our kids all over the place to play in the summer, they're not necessarily intimidated by someone who's, a upstate guy or a Baltimore guy or whatever. That's for old guys like us. You know what I mean? There's still a little bit of a vibe like that, but these kids are like, whatever. We played those guys when I was 12. We were already out on Long Island doing that, and we've been to Colorado playing in this event or so forth. So it's fun. It's been fun to watch, the kids and they have a little bit of a bond with these guys, and the summer circuit gets bagged on a little bit, but man, if we could have done that when we were coming up, we would have loved it. Let's go to a place where there's 50 games going on in a day and you can watch lacrosse all day. It's like heaven, So I'm really excited for the kids these days. I just wish there wasn't maybe quite all the hype and pressure on them, and they could just relax and play a little bit more. So
I asked the question as a reality question, not as the knock on whether we're good or bad. I think we're slightly behind. I've always used the analogy.
We are where we are. We are where we are.
Well,
we're aspiring to be better. Yeah. When
somebody tells me we've been around, we're just a young sport, and I look 52. Well, no. And I understand that the growth was, and I'm one of the old timers, but I've only been around 25 years. And so that means I've only been around half the time, from the process. But we go back to the Berkman comment, Jake Bernhardt, who went to Ferris and played quarterback as a grad student. Now, one of the best players in the country at Maryland, if he would have traveled to Hope as in that 5th year, instead of playing football, would have played lacrosse, Now all of a sudden you have, because listen, at that level, don't you think one player of that caliber could make a difference?
For sure. And I think he made a difference for Maryland,
Yeah.
I mean,
no, there's no doubt.
I got to see him play live a couple times against Michigan, and it was wow. Yeah. I mean, the guy he was special. So it was fun to watch his football. And my son and I were actually going to drive up to Ferris one day to watch him play live, but he was hurt, I heard. So it was like, okay, we're not going if we're not going to get to watch him. So, but what a wild ride for him, and what an impact. And I hope we see him in the PLL or in the NFL. Who knows? Right.
But I get my point is that those kind of opportunities, those are, as you get better. I mean, obviously you're striving to be in the Final Four and be at that level. No coach starts a season thinking, well, we'll be happy with third place. I get that part of it. I'm just trying to get a more realistic view of where we are and what we're doing. And right. I've always sort of thought that the carpetbaggers have always been the carpetbaggers. The guys that are trying to make money off of this have always done the same thing. And this hasn't changed in 25 years. The faces change. The club names change. It isn't any more cutthroat today than it was 25 years ago, but there's so many good opportunities for lacrosse, NAIA level, MIAA level, Division II. We now have good Division II programs. And so the reason I'm asking the questions is that if I'm a parent listening to this, I've got a better understanding of what's available locally. And I think that's something that's not necessarily talked about very often, because we don't want to talk the truth, because that doesn't make us great nationally. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, yeah, I do. I know exactly what you're saying. And I think it's about the fit. And, we've heard about that before, but yeah, we lose a lot of kids to the hype. Well, I'm going to go play at this school that I've heard of, that no one's ever heard of as a college, but you've heard of as a lacrosse school, but it's out east. So I'm going to go there and play. Right. So we're lose Michigan kids and then recruit Colorado kids because they're coming east, so there is that perception. We also have, I think, 6 transfers on our roster this year, and have had transfers, and not every place is the right place for people, and the kids have to figure out what's the good balance for me, and where can I be competitive. So these are very, very competitive teams, that you're joining. So it is a lot of hard work for a college freshman, no matter where you go. And so there's a pretty steep learning curve to go from picking up a high school ground ball to picking up an NCAA level ground ball. And that's just to get started. So it's really fun to work with college kids and to watch them grow physically, mentally, intellectually, and then they just get so much better by playing, every day with other college guys. It's fun. I love it.
I sometimes also think we use the mix of not knowing all of the niches. And let me give you really a quick one. There's a young man in your team who has 2 brothers, one who was going to play Division I at Albany, one who had a great career at Indy, which is, they've developed into one of the great programs. He was the smartest kid in his family and was by no stretch of the imagination the lacrosse player that his 2 brothers were, although he's going to end up owning the family business because he's the smartest of the brothers. He's on your bench. He's not a starter for you. He's not your leading scorer, but he's playing college lacrosse and having a great experience. I watched him play this past summer, having had coached him for 4 years at Oxford. And there's a perfect example of what can be possible in programs that are not Hopkins and, Syracuse. There's plenty of places for things. And I think that's where we get mixed up sometimes. If we don't have, Division I scholarships 100% to go to Syracuse or to, Virginia, we lose the idea. And even those coaches don't talk that way. So you've got kids on your bench that have great experience to be college athletes who are academic, brilliant kids. And that gets lost in the mix sometimes, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Your experience at school is a lot bigger than just lacrosse, but lacrosse is a big deal, for these kids. So, it is very competitive, and, it's an adjustment for people, but, the kid you're talking about, he found his role and he was a man down specialist for us. And he was excellent, just absolutely excellent, and did everything right, and grew up, and, I'm so proud of them. Yeah. So it just, we're not looking necessarily to find, a whole team of superstars. We're looking for the right people,
right,
who understand what it means to be part of a team and who are willing to really learn side by side and to get to work with people like that. So, and then, it's still a game we play every day. We do have a great time. It's a lot of fun to be out there too. It's a good experience for these guys. So, are we, should you come to our school instead of going to some other school? Well, that's up to you. If you can get in and we have the academic program that you want, it's worth taking a look at it because we play some pretty good ball. But if that's not, your thing, there's plenty of really good lacrosse players out there. Will they all fit here? No, they won't.
Mike, what do you know?
More that won't fit here than will fit here. So when we recruit, it's not a shopping trip for us. Like we're a D1 program. It's an investigation to assess the fit, really.
Do you ever pass on a kid because you hear stories?
I wouldn't say it's that dramatic, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So like I said, it's not a shopping trip, but yeah, absolutely. If you see their parents, this happened this summer, and their parents are just shenanigans, at the Under Armour tryouts. We're down in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And, they just, the whole program's not going to fit in with our whole program. So is that kid off the list? Yeah, 100%. It's like there's lots of other people that are as good, that are a better fit for us. So yeah, it matters. I mean, it all matters, right? And if the kid's a good kid, comes on a visit, hangs out with our guys, and they like them, I listen. I listen to those guys. We have a senior who is sort of our recruiting liaison, and he runs the show. He lets me know, like, yeah, this guy's legit. He's a good person and would fit in well here, or no, we might want to pass on this guy, and so we're pretty honest and discreet about it. It's complicated though. There are a lot of moving parts for sure. And there are a lot of kids that would be a great fit here that aren't interested. Right. And so if they're not interested, I'm no salesman and I have no time for that. So that's okay. Have a good time wherever you go. But a lot of times those are the guys that come back, like, cause they had a good experience or they had a good visit or they had a good vibe when they were with us. And so we do get some rebound kids that are transfer kids quite often. Usually every year that happens.
Like, what do you know in your 50s? This will be the last couple of questions. What do you know in your 50s that you didn't know in your 30s as a coach?
I think I love that question. Thank you very much. So I have read and thought and pondered and listened to every podcast possible and watched all these different things. And so I don't blame my 30-year-old self for not having the opportunity to work for the next 3 years. But I would say it's so important to know these kids, to know who they really are. And it's so important to just spend time with them, and not just in command mode or bringing the heat in practice mode, but, to take some extra shots with them after practice or to have a pizza with them or just to listen to them. That I think was easy for me when I was a new coach at East, because I was practically the same age as those guys. I could hang out with them, at that level. But as I've gotten older, I need to make an effort to pay attention, not just pay attention to the X's and O's and watch, volumes of film. And, if I really know what moves them, then I can put them together so they can be successful. So I think that's the thing that I've, much more attuned to now. And then the other thing is not necessarily to get out of their way, but we have three things we want to do every day. We want to run the field, we want to share the work, and we want to just play. So can we get to that point, like the inner game of tennis, where you're just playing, you're not thinking too much. So I could draw their attention to 27 different things that maybe they could do a little bit better, but let me look at how they're executing. Let me look at how they're connecting that pass, right? The old Dom Starsia is a pass that catches itself. You know what I mean? Are they crisp with their connections? Are they using names when they connect a pass with one another? You know, so there's some basic things that have to happen over and over and over. Pick up the ball, get your eyes up, move it twice, right? You know, just these things, I think, you know, if you can get them reinforcing those basic things with one another and encourage that, we take more time to debrief in our squads, and I make more time to listen to them when I plan, right? So that's a much more part of the process at this point.
Okay. Last, and I just have a follow-up. Young coaches listen to all kinds of podcasts, as you pointed out.
For sure.
Until I coached at Michigan State and I tried to coach 40 girls, having never had a sister nor a daughter, I thought I had understood my own voice. My experience of 8 or 9 years at Michigan State taught me I didn't understand my own voice. So I was in my late 50s till I finally became comfortable with exactly what my voice was. My question to you, after 30 or 35 years of coaching, when did you get comfortable with your voice and it wasn't an amalgamation of all of the other things that had come through the years?
I think this has been sort of a secret blessing. Our coach when I was at Hope was the chaplain, and he was a wonderful person, but he wasn't literally at practice with us. He was more of an advisor than a coach. And so we had to listen to each other, and we had to build it like that. And I had to study. So when we went on a spring break trip, I knew I didn't know what I was doing. So that was very helpful, I think. And I'd still have that attitude, like there's a lot more for me to learn about this. So I didn't really have any, you know, I had a lot of other coaches. I had my football coach voice in the back of my head. I had my hockey coach, you know, a string of profanity, you know, rolling through my consciousness when I'm doing things and things like that. I actually studied at Bolletari's Tennis Academy. I was a senior in high school for a while. So I had some really great coaching there. So that I had some coaching influences, but none of them were lacrosse coaches. So for me, being hungry, being humble enough to just ask, just straight up, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. Renzi Lamb is explaining to me, hey, this is probably how you want to ISO, you know. I'm like, okay, thanks a lot, you know. So some really the graciousness of the coaching fraternity in lacrosse has been amazing to me, and especially as a basketball coach, you know, for 30 plus years, it's different. It's just a different vibe. The accessibility, the opportunity just to talk to these people that are big time people, like you've been doing. You've been talking to all these big time coaches, and their graciousness to give you time like that, I think is just amazing. So I think stay humble and hungry, and just keep hunting the opportunity to get better and learn more. So that would be my advice to a youngster who is just starting out.
But my question is, when did you become comfortable with the inner monologue in your head to be yours? And my point is, 10,000 hours. I have young coaches who tell me that they know all there is to know. And I keep telling them, I coached 30 years and still was learning. And I've only been comfortable with the inner monologue in my head probably the last 10 years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my answer to that is, first of all, if you think you know everything, bullshit. Like, I hope I heard on that, but you don't. And then second of all, like, I don't think I'm still comfortable with that. Right. Okay. So I still have that, what are the Zen philosophers call it, that beginner's mind. You know what I mean? Right. Like I'm still locked into, I have a lot to learn. All right. And, you know, a lot of it, I just read a really good book called Let Them Lead by John U. Bacon. And I know we're Spartans and he's a Michigan guy, but it's very worth picking up if you haven't picked it up. And it was really good about having standards and then allowing you know, enough space and opportunity for those guys to learn and to fight it on their own and figure it out. And then be supportive and coach them up and be there for them, listen to them. So I think that there's you know, a lot of opportunity for us to grow our game, and it's a really good group of people that we get to coach with and against. and same in the MIAA. You know, it's been a nice thing to be able to get to know these guys as good people.
As you mentioned, John Ubick, and my wife would disagree with me, but good ideas can come from bad places. So, listen, I've been fortunate enough. We've had 2 or 3 kids play for you that came out of our programs. You are a classmate act by every dimension, and I appreciate your time. And hopefully that if you watch this, you get a better understanding of maybe the landscape that, again, trying to not to knock anything, just trying to have real conversations about what the reality of our sport is. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. Good luck this season, Mike. And wow, you're such a terrific guy. I appreciate the time.
Hey, it's great to see you. I appreciate your time as well, and keep doing what you're doing. We're all out here learning from it. So thanks.
Absolutely.
I want to thank Mike Schanhals for coming aboard and having a conversation about the MIAA, Hope College lacrosse, and a little bit about the future of where we're headed in this state. Mike has some great insights, and it's always fun to talk to him. Their season opens next week, and we wish them the best of luck. I think they're going down to Elm Grove, Illinois, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, good luck to the folks in Hope and all the MIAA teams, and we'll see you next week.